Hey everyone, this is Alana with FidgetHaven Reviews, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Pendulum MK2 by Paul Watson at Rotablade. They're currently sold for 135 GBP, which translates to roughly about $175 USD at the time of this review. Now, the first time that I saw the Pendulum, I knew that I absolutely needed to have it. It's a very unique fidget, as you can see, and it's based off of chaos theory. Basically, what that means is that the slightest variation of the movement in the hand is going to cause it to act in a really unpredictable and incalculatable way. It's made up of buttons, which are also referred to as grips by Paul, a dual-armed pendulum, and a small pendulum weight, which is the one at the bottom. There are also two hybrid ceramic bearings within, one in the lower portion of the pendulum and one in the top portion of the pendulum under the buttons. It's machined out of stainless steel, and it's been left with its machine finish. It weighs in at 35.2 grams on my scale, and it measures a hair over 1.75 inches when it's folded up, and 2.375 inches when it's fully extended. To play with the pendulum, you can either hold it vertically or horizontally. When held vertically, the pendulum can be dangled, and it can be manipulated either by pulling on these machined ridges at the top, or you can move your hand around like so to make it move on its own. When it's held horizontally, only really minor movements are needed to make it spin around in a really interesting and mesmerizing way. My personal preference is to use it horizontally because I find that it just dances a lot more beautifully. I find that it reminds me of this plastic novelty snake that I had as a kid, and possibly many of you had it as well. It was made up of a bunch of different segments, and when you held the snake horizontally by the tail, it would kind of slither around in the air, mimicking a real snake. Now, I suppose my point in telling you that is that because the pendulum reminds me of that, it gives me a little feel of nostalgia every time I play with it, and I find that it makes it just a little bit more special to me. The components for the pendulum are well constructed. The buttons have the same silhouette as the stubby buttons, but they've been modified on the underside with a larger step up and threading to compensate for the additional height of the dual-arm pendulum. As you can see on the inside behind the buttons, there is one of the bearings. I cannot show you the other one, however, because I have no idea how to take the pendulum apart, although I don't really think that you are supposed to try. I find that the buttons are good size and they measure in at 20 millimeters. The machined ridges at the top of the dual-arm pendulum are very useful, and I appreciate their inclusion. I find that they allow you to use the pendulum in a vertically oriented way much easier than had they not been included. I find that they provide pretty good grip. The machining finish has some inconsistencies, mostly on the small pendulum weight. Now, it's not the end of the world, but I do find that it's very noticeable when the light hits it on certain angles. I'd love to see it polished, and I've been considering doing it myself. I think that the pendulum is really good size for average or large-sized hands, but it can be a bit troublesome for someone with smaller hands. I do find that the small pendulum weight sometimes hits my palm or my index finger, and I have to hold it in a way that allows for extra clearance. This can sometimes cause extra hand or finger fatigue when I play with it for extended periods of time, so that is something to note. I would say that there's a learning curve to the pendulum. When I first got it, I really wasn't sure how I felt about it, and I wondered if it was actually worth all of the hype. I could definitely see the fun, or the potential for fun, but my inexperience with it meant that I really didn't know the best ways to play with it to get the most interesting movements. So after a few hours of playing with it, I do feel like I figured it out, and it's become a really fun distraction fidget for me. That said, I do find it to be much more of a distraction fidget than a concentration fidget, as I cannot keep my eyes off of it when I'm playing with it. Overall, I find the pendulum to be a really relaxing distraction fidget. It's very unique, and it's definitely an eye catcher. I think that it's mesmerizing and soothing to watch it dance around, and it does help me pass the time easily while I'm waiting. Now, it's not a toy for everyone, I'll tell you that, especially for what it costs. But if you're very curious about it and you have the money to spend, I would say that it's worth a try. My biggest recommendation for the pendulum is to play with it for several hours before deciding whether you like it or not. I do see a lot of people purchasing them and then immediately putting them up for sale after saying, "Oh, I picked it up for a minute and I didn't like it." And I would say with this toy, that's not a fair assessment of it, even for me, someone who is desperately waiting for one. I wasn't sure if I liked it at first, and it did take a couple of hours of playing for me to really get it and understand what it was about. So again, this is the Pendulum MK2 by Paul Watson at Rotablade. I am Alana from FidgetHaven Reviews. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to post them in the comment section below. I will include a link to the Rotablade store and to my written review in the description below. And I appreciate you watching this. I hope that it was helpful for you, and I hope that you have a fantastic day. Thanks for watching.